TCU football makes a move over the weekend by adding an offensive lineman, but really, it just speaks to the offseason continuity.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I'm your host, Steven Simcox. I've been covering TCU athletics for the past 12 years. Thanks for making thanks for making Locked On Horned Frogs your first listen. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. If you need tickets to the next sporting event, comedy show, theater production, whatever it is, check out the Gametime app. Download it today. We're going to talk about TCU baseball dropping a series to UCF later on in the show. TCU basketball adding a 6'7" player who can shoot. I like the sound of that. I bet you do too. But we start today with TCU football. They added a player in the transfer portal on Friday afternoon, Dylan Kinney from Abilene Christian, who through his first 2 seasons at ACU did not play. But last year, he made 12 starts for Abilene Christian. He's from Richmond, Texas. This comes from write-up from Jeremy Clark of Horned Frog Blitz. According to Pro Football Focus, Kinney had a 72% blocking grade for the season and 64% in run blocking. TCU's added a number of offensive linemen over the past couple of off seasons. And one thing that I've noticed, every single one of them have been good at pass blocking. Now, part of that is when you're talking about grading out O-linemen, it is easier to grade out better on pass blocking than it is run blocking. There's a very defined goal in pass blocking. Do not get beat. Do not let your quarterback get hit. There's a number of ways to do that. You can get in somebody's way. You can engage with someone. You can use their momentum, drive them up the field. It's not firing off the ball and shoving somebody back or getting to the other shoulder of a player and getting a reach block or getting a hook block. It can be technical, it can be brute force, but there's different ways to keep your quarterback clean in the pocket. When you're talking about run blocking, it's pretty obvious whether you win or lose, and it's a tough thing to do. But held the zone in both run blocking and pass blocking. Played a lot of snaps last season. To me, this edition, I said on Friday, I talked about the 3 things that we learned from spring camp. And one of the things I said was TCU's not going to make a major move on the offensive line. I think the offensive line is pretty set as it is right now, which at the moment, you got Ryan Hughes at tackle, left tackle, Colton Deary at left guard, Ryan Hughes at left tackle, Cade Bennett at left guard, Colton Deary sliding over to center. Right guard is a battle. I could see Remington Strickland. I could see Carson Bruno. That's still left out there in the wash. Or maybe one of the young guys, but it really does feel like it's Bruno and Strickland battling it out. At the right tackle spot, Ben Taylor Whitfield. Kinney played tackle at Abilene Christian. But I think there's a good chance with his size at 310 pounds, he could slide inside, and it would make sense to do that. I'm not counting him out, but in my mind, this is, a twofold addition. The first thing that you're getting with Dylan Kinney is depth, which you need. Mitch Hodnett just left in the transfer portal, one of their young offensive linemen that they recruited. So he's moving on. You get Kinney in there, and you have somebody at the guard spot who can start training up. You can get reps. If injuries happen and he's performing well during fall camp and then during practice during the season, then possibly you throw him in there. I don't think this is a starter. I think this is a good person to have for depth in your offensive line room to provide some competition for your current guys. And there's still eligibility left. He's got multiple years of eligibility. So this year you get him ingrained in the system. You get him integrated in what you're doing. He understands, what needs to happen. He gets a taste of Power 5 football because it's a big jump. I mean, Jordan Dwyer's making a similar jump, but I'm less worried about a wide receiver coming up from FCS to the Power 4 than an O lineman or D lineman who's having to deal with the physicality of that position on each and every snap. I believe he's going to take some time. But he was a really good player for Abilene Christian. He's got multiple years of eligibility. You give yourself depth in the immediate, and you give yourself someone that you can use as a building block for the future, along with the heavy high school influence you've had from a recruiting standpoint in the trenches over the past few years. It's very similar to the addition of Rashid Jackson in the first portal window. Rashid played at Incarnate Word, didn't have an extensive football background. Kinney does. In Jackson's case, lived in Ohio for most of his life, played basketball, comes down to Duncanville, ends up playing football, is a contributor on one of their state title teams, gets to Incarnate Word, played a lot last season. He's competing right now for the starting job, but I think his impact is going to be felt more in the future for the TCU offensive line. And I feel similarly about what they're doing with Dylan Kinney. And honestly, it comes back to, if this team is banking on continuity next season being the key and the difference to improve. If you look, TCU and Texas Tech are almost doing separate case studies on how to build a roster right now. Texas Tech is going heavy in the transfer portal. They're chasing after high impact, high dollar players that are going to plug and play immediately. From day one, they're stepping in. They're the starter. They're the person that's set up to contribute at the wide receiver spot or at the corner spot or at linebacker or whatever the case is. TCU, they got a few of those guys. Jordan Dwyer, they're paying him good money to come here and play one of those outside wide receiver spots. And he's not here to be a backup. Now, that doesn't mean he's just gifted the job, but they recruited him and got him on campus with this in mind. This dude can play right away. Joseph Manjack, same thing. He's played a lot of football in his career at Houston. Coming over to TCU, he's going to be a dude that plays right away. But a lot of the other transfers that they got, like Rashid Jackson, like Kamorian Pimpton, Kylan Jackson from LSU, they are younger players who have time to figure this out, or in the case of some of the other guys, it's veteran players that give you some depth and some security in those particular position groups. That's been their strategy this offseason in the portal. Whether it works or not, well, that remains to be seen. But they have a clear plan, and they're not deviating from it. They have built this roster largely through high school recruiting and through portal pickups here and there over the last few years. And this is the season where they're banking on it all coming together. Sonny said it in a press conference before spring camp. He was like, look, the way we closed last season was good. I'm glad that we finished strong. I'm glad we got that done. But the expectation here is to be in the Big 12 championship game. And if we're not in Arlington this season, that's disappointing. Is that coach speak? Yes, to a certain extent it is. I'm not saying you need to stand up off your couch or pull the car over and give him a standing ovation. Okay? That's not my point. But I do think it's significant that publicly he is laying out, like, this is what we want to do. And it wasn't in a rah-rah, I'm a new coach. You know, what's the playbook when a new coach comes in? Introductory press conference. We're going to beat Team X and TCU's case. Like, we're going to beat Baylor. We're going to beat our rivals. We're going to build a fence around whatever area we're in. We're going to build a fence recruiting wise around our local talent. We're going to win championships. Everybody says that. That's an easy thing to say. It's tough to deliver on those promises. But that's not the context here. This is a guy that is in year 4. And there's been some ups and downs. And there was a time last season, some of you cringe when I say this, but I think it's the reality. There was a time last season after that loss to SMU, after that loss to Houston, where there were some big-time alarm bells going off, some major questions happening, at least within the fan base. I don't know if it got up to the decision makers yet, But within the fan base, there was a lot of, is this the dude? This wasn't what we were promised, right? So this is a big time year. And what they are building around and trusting in and putting their faith in is that the guys they have and that they recruited, that have played in their system, that those dudes are going to step up and make it happen. And yeah, they're dipping into the portal to get some depth pieces. They're dipping into the portal to get some dudes who can play right away. But at the end of the day, it's about Josh Hoover taking the next step. It's about Nate Palmer and Jeremy Payne taking a big step. This offensive line, which has some new faces, coming together and making a jump. The defense in year 2, making a jump. But it's on the backs of dudes who have been here. And Dylan Kinney, it's another example of that's the type of player they're going to chase after. Maybe they'll add 1 or 2 more. There hasn't been a huge exodus of their players, right? When you look at TCU and what they're giving up in the portal, Mitch Hodnett, you hate to lose him because he's a young offensive lineman, but I mean, he was a young backup offensive lineman. There's still time to jump in the spring portal window, but there hasn't been a lot of attrition here. When we come back, TCU basketball, adding a big-time name. It's Locked on Horned Frogs, your team every day. If you work in the HVAC world, in the plumbing world, run your own business, you know getting supplies can be very difficult, and you have to have the right tools. You have to have the right equipment to get the job done. Supply House can help you get the supplies you need from the site, made from skilled trades. Whether you're into plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is a reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, Supply House experts offer support and industry-leading service. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com. Give it a try today. TCU has added a player in the transfer portal. TCU men's basketball, that is. I apologize in advance. People get on to me from time to time for my pronunciation of things. Almost couldn't pronounce that. I admit that is a problem from time to time. I searched for a good 30 to 45 minutes to try my best to not butcher this name. I'm going to give it a shot. I apologize once he's introduced and more integrated in TCU system, I'll work really hard to get this right. Latarius Levikas from Oregon State. He is a 6'7" sophomore from Lithuania. He plays small forward, power forward, that role. 8 points a game last year at Oregon State. 4 rebounds a game. Now, when I was watching highlights in film, some broadcasters would call him LT. I love that. Fits right in with TCU. So for the rest of the segment, I'm going to refer to him as LT. Here's the thing I love about this. I've been telling you, this team desperately needs more shooters. They had multiple problems offensively last year. One of them was they just didn't have many guys who could go get their own shot, create their own bucket. And they play an offense that is very ISO heavy, very pick and roll heavy. So it's imperative that you have guards that can break people down off the bounce and get their own looks or kick it out to shooters. Well, they also didn't really have shooters to kick it out to. So there was a ton of responsibility that fell on Noah Reynolds and Vashawn Allett, both of whom are gone. Noah out of eligibility, Vashawn transfer portal. This is a dude with size who can shoot. LT, he would hit corner threes. He would hit threes from the wing. From a raw stats perspective, again, about 9 points a game, 48% from the field, 37% from three. So close to that 40% mark that you love to see. He was also very active on the glass when I watched him. Had a good feel on the offensive glass for how to use his body to get around somebody and get a tip in. That's desperately needed. You lost Ernest Uday, so you don't have a rebounder at this point, or somebody like him who just is going to get after the boards relentlessly. This is a good piece. This is a dude who can play the four, who can shoot, who can put the ball on the deck. Didn't get a great feel for his defensive prowess watching him play, but offensively, this makes a ton of sense. So at the moment, if I was going to take a stab at what the starting five is going to look like, I don't have a great feel for point guard. If Caden Edwards is ready right away, he might be the dude. But Ashton Simmons is also there. I'll give the nod to Ashton Simmons for now, even though he didn't play last year. Technically, he's the vet in this spot. Or excuse me, that's me, Brock Harding from Iowa. So Brock Harding at Iowa at point. Jaden Pierre at the combo guard spot. LT at that 3 or 4. David Punch in the middle. You could go out of center. You also, Tanner Toulson is a name that they're still chasing after. The transfer from Utah Valley. So that's another name to know. From a position standpoint, it's pretty crowded and they're pretty small right now. Not a lot of height on this team at the moment. But you've still got some time to figure that out. Go land a big man in the portal to pair with Malik Diallo. Then you start building yourself a rotation. But I've been critical over the last few months of just the direction of this program in general. It feels pretty stale. Last year, I mean, you can just write it off as like, hey, that's a reset year. But the question that I keep coming back to is the last time that they went through this sort of rough patch as a team. Mike Miles was there. He had just come off his freshman year, and they made it a point to build the thing around him. And so they were very active in the portal, and they went and got guys who could play, and they built the team around Mike Miles' playmaking. I don't know who they're building the team around right now. If I had to guess, I would say it's David Punch. And you're putting a lot of responsibility on him to get in the gym this offseason and work on his jump shot so that he gives you more of a threat from the outside as a player. You now throw Lataris into that mix too, as a dude with some size who can shoot. Maybe that gives Punch the freedom to play down low more if those two are playing at the same time. But that's a small lineup. If both your 4 and your 5 are at 6'7", that's not a lot of rim protection. That's not much of a post presence. Not that you need that in spades in this day and age in basketball, but still, it's nice to have somebody who can get down low and get their points from time to time, even if it's just on cleanup, offensive rebound buckets. But they had to find a way to get more floor spacing and more shooting, and this addition at least does that. Harding was a pretty solid shooter. The thing I like about LT is he is a catch and shoot guy. Wenzel was supposed to be that dude last season, and after some early returns that were good, he struggled mightily to shoot the basketball. Really, after that big shot against Baylor, that corner 3 against Baylor to win it, he struggled to shoot the ball. And so they didn't have somebody who could relocate and find an open spot and knock down a 3. And that severely limits your offense when you don't have dudes you can kick it out to. And you're constantly sort of running dribble handoff action and trying to find somebody who can win a one-on-one matchup. That's a tough way to live offensively. So this gives them some more flexibility and hopefully some more space to run good plays and sets and have somebody who can shoot the basketball. But overall, I really like this pickup, and I think it's a step in the right direction. Toulson's another dude with some size who can shoot it. He's more of a small forward guard. But quietly, I think they're doing some nice things. I'm not sure if it's all going to be cohesive at the end of the day, but quietly, I think the individual additions are making sense. When we come back, TCU baseball may have lost themselves a chance at a Big 12 regular season title this weekend. We'll talk about that here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Before we do that, though, I do want to tell you about one of our great sponsors, and that is Gametime. Gametime, they make buying tickets easy, whether it's to a sporting event, to a comedy show, to a theater production, whatever it is, Gametime can do it for you. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. I wish the Mavs were there, but you know how that worked out. Every bucket, every defensive stop feels huge. Gametime makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer. Their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. I love using Gametime because it is so easy to use. I've told you this story before, but a few months ago, I wanted to go to a TCU basketball game. My parents were kind enough to give me some tickets for Christmas, but they used another app that I won't name, and the tickets got canceled. And I said, hey, it's okay. I got it. I jumped on the Gametime app, grabbed a few tickets. Within 5 minutes, I had it. They still were able to get me the gift. It was wonderful. Download the Gametime app today. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Gametime app. Give it a try today. Before we get into some baseball, I do want to mention, I talked about this Thursday, so it might not be news to you, but Josh Hoover reportedly, according to On3 first, and then I saw the Fort Worth Star-Telegram followed up with some more details in the story over the weekend. He turned down Tennessee. Tennessee came in and offered him more NIL money to go play there, or at least talked with his representatives. And he said, no thanks, which is really good news for TCU. I don't think the talks were that serious, but it still is great PR for TCU. That an SEC school was, lurking around, hunting around, and the answer was, no, we're good. We're good here. I'm getting compensated well. I believe in this coaching staff. I believe in this team. It's going to be all right. Super encouraging to see. According to the Star-Telegram, it was $1 million over what he's making now. And I think what this shows is, yes, there is money is a huge component to every decision made ever, right? When we talk about business, it's becoming more and more front and center with college sports, which makes people uneasy. And I understand that, but relationships still matter. TCU has put the work in to build a good, trusting relationship with Josh Hoover over the past 3 seasons. And it's paying off. They believe in him. He believes in them. And they're ready to rock and roll next season. TCU baseball went on the road to UCF. I talked about game 1 on Friday. They won that ball game. But then they went on to lose the next 2, 4-2 on Saturday in the rubber match, which ended up losing in the series, and then a 5-1 loss on Friday night against a UCF team that had 4 Big 12 wins going into this weekend. So a disappointing showing in Orlando. A lot of blame to go around, but it really centers on the offense. The pitching staff gave up too many free passes. But honestly, this pitching staff, the way they have been depleted this year, and the fact that they really just have one dude they can count on to go give them a quality start each and every weekend is Tommy Lepore. They've stayed competitive, and that's awesome. But Sawyer Strohsnyder has been great all year. He struggled this weekend. Carson Bowen struggled this weekend. Noah Franco had a rough weekend at the plate. And in some situational hitting spots, 2nd and 3rd and 1 out in a 2-2 game in the rubber match Saturday, Anthony Silva strikes out. Carson Bowen struck out, bases loaded, nobody out. Now, team ended up picking him up a little bit and scoring a few runs, but that's been a very common problem this year. This is a young team. There's going to be some ups and downs, but this was a huge missed opportunity. West Virginia swept Cincinnati this weekend. They have played 2 less games than TCU, but in all honesty, TCU is like 3 full games back of West Virginia now, and they don't play the Mountaineers this season. So they're not going to get a head-to-head chance to make some of that up. They play Baylor this weekend. Hopefully they can bounce back and get on the right track, but a comeback down to earth moment after a couple series sweeps. Part of that's just baseball. They're going to follow the top 25. Maybe they'll follow the hosting discussion for now. There's still a lot in front of them. You got to start playing better, though, and that starts with this matchup against Baylor on Friday night. We'll be back tomorrow. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Subscribe to the YouTube channel or on your favorite podcast platform.